I built a 20 million business with my bare hands. People think I'm exaggerating when I say that, but they don't understand the blood, the sweat, the endless nights where I slept in my car just to keep the dream alive. My name is Laura, and I'm about to tell you a story that will sound like a movie, but it's not. It's my life. When I was 19, my father told me I'd never amount to anything. He said my only job was to be quiet, obedient, and grateful that he put food on the table, My father, Anthony, was one of those men who believed control was the same thing as love. He never hugged me, never praised me, never once said he was proud. Instead, every mistake I made, every grade lower than an A, every friend he disapproved of, was a weapon he used to remind me of my worthlessness. And yet I loved him. I craved his approval the way a starving child craves bread. That hunger fueled me. Every dollar I earned, every deal I closed, every sleepless night working towards something bigger. It was always with this fantasy in my head. One day, Dad will look at me and say, "Laura, I'm proud of you." By 27, I had founded my own logistics company. I started with one beat-up van I bought at an auction and a laptop that crashed everyone I knew her. I hustled harder than anyone I knew, while my peers were parturers at coaling manufacturing at a ward in the morning. While my prash cottered in the fort, I landed contracts through sheer persistence, sometimes driving 6 hours just to deliver a proposal. My body broke down. I lived on caffeine and adrenaline. But I built something real. By 30, that company was valued at over $20 million. 20 million. I had employees who depended on me, clients who trusted me, and banks that once laughed in my face, now begging me to deposit with them. I bought my parents a house. I paid off their debts. I covered my siblings' college tuition. I didn't do it because they asked. I did it because I thought that's what family was. You rise, you pull everyone else up with you. But here's the cruelest truth I've ever learned. Not everyone wants to see you win. Sometimes the people you save are the very people who will stab you deepest. It started with small things. My dad would sneer at the car I drove, asking why I didn't buy something classier. He'd criticize the house I picked out for them, saying it was too modest for a man of his standing. A man of his standing? He hadn't worked in years. He lived off. Still, I bit my tongue. I told myself, he's just old-fashioned. He'll come around. The breaking point came on a sweltering July afternoon. I remember it clearly. The cicadas screaming outside, the thick air pressing against my skin like a wet blanket. I had just signed a deal worth 8 figures. My company was expanding internationally. I drove straight to my parents' house because all I wanted was to share the news. I walked in, beaming, papers still in my hand. "Dad," I said, "we did it. We're global now. Can you believe it?" He didn't smile. He didn't congratulate me. He just set down his glass of whiskey, leaned back in his chair, and said, "You think money makes you special? You're still nothing but a lowlife." The words sliced through me. Lowlife. I froze. What do you mean? You heard me, he snarled. You run around like some big shot, but you're still a failure. You'll never be one of us. You'll never be a real success. And don't think buying us things changes anything. We don't want your dirty money. We. He said we. My mother sat silently beside him, eyes downcast, like she agreed but didn't have the courage to say it. I felt my throat close. "I've given you everything," I whispered. "The house, the cars, the tuition. Dad, I've built all this for us." He stood up, towering over me, his voice booming like thunder. "And get out of my house and leave you ever, you lowlife." My hands shook, so come back. I hands shook the contract padly, and don't nearly drop the contract paper. My chest felt hollow, like someone had scooped my heart out with a dull knife. I waited for him to laugh, to say it was just a cruel joke. But his eyes, cold, glassy, filled with resentment, told me it was real. That day I walked out. Not just out of his house, but out of their lives. For weeks I drowned in rage and grief. I replayed his words in my head until they rotted my sleep. I had sacrificed everything, and for what? to be discarded like trash, to be told that the man whose approval I built my life around saw me as worthless. But grief has a strange alchemy. If you hold it long enough, it turns into fire, and fire, if you aim it right, burns down everything that stands in your way. So I made a decision. If my father thought I was a lowlife, then fine. I would become the kind of lowlife he could never ignore. I would build sections so untouchable, so massive, that his rejection would haunt him like a ghost. I moved the Chowdica ghosts. I moved to New York. I left behind the suburban mansion I bought for them. Left behind the shallow family dinners, where my siblings only spoke to me when they needed money. I rented a loft with exposed brick walls and windows that overlooked the city like an endless chessboard. That was my battlefield now. I poured everything into expanding my company. Nights bled into mornings. I surrounded myself with killers in business, men and women who'd clawed their way up from nothing. Together we broke into markets my father couldn't even pronounce. Within 3 years, my net worth tripled. Articles were written about me. Forbes called me one of the most powerful self-made women in America. And all the while, my family never called, not a single word, not congratulations, not even curiosity, until the day everything changed. It was Christmas Eve. Snow was falling outside my Manhattan office, the city glowing like a snow globe. My assistant buzzed in and said, "Laura, there's a man downstairs who insists on seeing you. Says he's your father." For a moment, my body went numb. I hadn't seen his face in years. Part of me wanted to slam the door, to refuse him the way he once refused me. But curiosity, dangerous, intoxicating, made me say, "Send him up." He walked in slower than I remembered, his shoulders slumped, his eyes sunken, but the arrogance was still there, simmering beneath the decay. "Laura," he said, his voice rough, "I need your help." I leaned back in my chair, studying him like a stranger. "Help?" I repeated. He swallowed hard. "The house is gone. The cars, your mother's medical bills. I can't pay them. I was wrong, Laura. I shouldn't have said what I said. You're not a lowlife. You're successful. You've made something. Please, help your father." For years I had fantasized about this moment. Him crawling back, begging. And now it was here. I stood slowly, walked around the desk, and looked him dead in the eye. "Do you remember the last thing you said to me?" He blinked. I was drunk, I didn't mean it. "Leave you lowlife," I whispered, repeating his words. "That's what you said." His face crumbled. "Laura, please, don't do this." But I did. I leaned in close, so close I could smell the whiskey still clinging to his breath, and I said, "Get out of my building, and don't you ever come back." His jaw tightened. His eyes filled with something I had longed for all my life. Not pride, not love, but fear. He turned, shoulders shaking, and walked away. That was my justice. Not money, not headlines, but looking the man who broke me in the eye and showing him I had become everything he said I couldn't be. Without him. And as the door shut behind him, I realized something. Revenge isn't always fire and fury. Sometimes it's cold, quiet. A single mirror held up to someone who once made you feel invisible. That night, I poured myself a glass of champagne, sat by the window, and whispered to the city I conquered, and was storm you never room. Lowlife coming. No vade in a wars to marrying the storms of the call of the